Well, good morning and welcome to Laketon Bethel. As you can tell, I'm not at Laketon Bethel right now. My name is Sherwin, by the way, and here at Laketon Bethel we have two services every Sunday, one at 9 and one at 11, and we invite you to make Laketon Bethel a part of your weekend plans. We'd love to have you there. I'm actually recording this in Chippewa Square in downtown Savannah, Georgia. This is the location where Forrest Gump was originally filmed, the movie Forrest Gump. And I'm sitting on a bench that's similar to the one that he was sitting on. Now that one's not here anymore, it's in a museum somewhere, but this is very similar. This is the location. It's an interesting location. It's about 90 degrees here. It's enough to make a Michigander wilt, but it's an interesting place nonetheless. Now my camera person, if you want to pick the camera up and kind of do a panorama of this park, you can see the statue of Oglethorpe there in the background. He's the fellow that founded the Georgia colony, and it's really quite an interesting park. Camera person, if you can get that tree with all the Spanish moss hanging from it. I read a story about how the early settlers stuffed their pillows with that Spanish moss, only to find out there's some kind of nasty little red bug in there that came out and bit them while they were sleeping. So it's kind of an interesting thing. We don't see Spanish moss much in Michigan. Now, Forrest Gump, as he sat down on this bench originally, a woman came and sat next to him, and he says, first thing he said to her is, "Those look like comfortable shoes." And then the dialogue continued. She looked like she was a medical personnel of some sort. And then he offered her a chocolate. He said, "I can eat 1.5 million of these." And he offered her a chocolate from the box. Then he said, my mama always said that life is like a box of chocolates. You never quite know what you're going to get. And then you remember, if you've seen the movie from the beginning of it, there's a church that's directly behind the camera here, where you see a feather floating down, and the feather lands right beside Forrest Gump's foot. And the whole theme of the movie is, well, are things planned, or do things just happen randomly? And the correct theological answer to that, are things planned or do they happen randomly? The correct theological answer is yes. But that's a sermon for another time. I think that probably the most significant thing from the movie of Forrest Gump is the way Forrest Gump's faith is portrayed. I really like that. How he got through life, kept his sense of faith, his sense of the presence of God. I like his interactions with Jenny, his girlfriend from since he was a little kid, where he often says, "Me and Jenny's just like peas and carrots. We go so well together." But Jenny wasn't very faithful to him in the first part of the movie. She runs around with a host of guys. She rejects him, but yet he always forgives her. He always comes back to her. Forrest Gump, like Jesus, had this uncanny ability to wipe the slate clean, to forgive people who've hurt him. And that's an incredibly important thing. He always wiped Jenny's slate clean. So for our purposes today, I want you to imagine a large whiteboard. If you've ever been in my office, you know I've got one in there. Imagine this large whiteboard with everything on it that you've done wrong your whole lives. Some of us would need a pretty big whiteboard for that. But think about that. Everything you've done wrong. All the lies you've told. Well, some of us could fill 3 rooms with the lies that we've told. The times you've hurt people. Some of us have hurt people, friends, family, co-workers, terribly. All those times listed on that whiteboard. The times you've taken something that's not yours. The times you've cheated the government out of taxes. The times you've stolen things. The times you've just acquired things that you shouldn't have acquired. All on that whiteboard. And then think of the times that you've slandered other of God's children. The times you said something bad about someone when they weren't in the room. All those times listed on that whiteboard. Then there's the times that you've cheated on your spouse. Some people wouldn't have very many. Some could fill a room with that. And all these things are on display for everyone to see. And then Jesus comes along with his quiet, peaceful movements, and he erases that entire whiteboard so that no one can write on it again except for you. And then if you write on it and ask Jesus to come along and wipe it clean, he'll do that. Now, folks, the Bible has some interesting things to say about this. I'm going to use Paul's letter to the Colossians today, from chapter 2, from a paraphrased version of the Bible called The Message. And chapter 2 of Colossians reads like this. When you were stuck in your old sin-dead life, you were incapable of responding to God. God brought you alive right along with Christ. Think of it. All sins forgiven, the slate wiped clean, that old arrest warrant canceled and nailed to Christ's cross. He stripped all the spiritual tyrants in the universe of their sham authority at the cross and marched them naked through the streets. Now, the importance of this passage is it shows us once again that we're incapable of winning God's favor by doing good things. We can't wipe the slate clean ourselves. We can't have another slate that lists our good things. That would be impossible, because the slate of sin is always longer. And then you trust Jesus to save you and something miraculous happens. He says, look, trust me, I'll take care of this. And he does. In Laketon Bethel, I have the red chair as a symbol of this. You get into the red chair, you trust Jesus to save you, and all the sin is gone. All forgiven. The slate is wiped clean. The old arrest warrant is canceled and nailed to the cross, as this passage says. Kind of interesting. The old tyrants who are trying to lay guilt on you are exposed, marched naked through the streets, as it says. So that's quite a statement that Paul makes there. But you get it. He's trying to convince you that Jesus alone can wipe your slate clean and keep it clean. So you don't need to haul this guilt around anymore. He goes on with this. Verse 16, he says, so don't put up with anyone pressuring you in details of diet, worship services, or holy days. All these things are mere shadows cast before what was to come. The substance is Christ. In other words, don't let anyone pressure you into becoming religious. That's not what Jesus is about. He's about loving God. He's about loving your neighbor. Period. Nothing more. Don't let people pressure you into following a bunch of religious rules. Jesus came to give you one rule. He said, a new command I have for you in the Gospel of John. And that command is that you love each other as I have loved you. That's it. That's the essence of Christianity. Everything else falls into place when we do that. Well, this follows Paul here as he's talking to people who are trying to impose lots of religious rules, lots of religious guilt on people. He says this, don't tolerate, let me repeat that, don't tolerate people who try to run your life, ordering you to bow and scrape, insisting that you join their obsession with angels and that you seek out visions. They're a lot of hot air. That's all they are. They're completely out of touch with the source of life, Christ, who puts us together in one piece, whose very breath and blood flow through us. He is the head, and we are the body. We can grow up healthy in God as He nourishes us. So, friends, here's the deal. Don't put up with people who try to manipulate you with religion. If somebody tells you you need to give something up for Lent and you don't want to do it, don't do it. If someone tells you to support a televangelist and you don't want to, don't do it. People who insist on religious rules that say, well, you know, you can't eat such and such, you can't drink such and such, you can't see such and such a movie, don't let them do it. Paul says they are out of touch with Christ. Then he says something interesting. He says that Jesus' breath and blood flow through us. His breath is his spirit, meaning that every time you inhale and exhale, he's there for you. He's closer to you than your breath, speaking to you. And you listen for it and you will hear it. And some service dogs are having a little discussion to my left over there. I'm sure you heard that too. But Paul is saying, be mindful of this spirit that is flowing through you. Then it says his blood flows through us. Think about that the next time you participate in the sacrament of the Lord's Supper. As you take that little vial of grape juice, it's a symbol of a blood transfusion that you're getting from Jesus. That his blood is flowing through you right now. That you are his, that he has indeed wiped the slate clean. And that's a good thing. So Paul summarizes all this with this one paragraph. I want to read it to you. It's verses 20 to 23 of Colossians 2. It says, so then, if with Christ you put all that puffed up and childish religion behind you, why do you let yourselves be bullied by it? Don't touch this. Don't taste that. Don't go near this. Do you think the things that are here today and gone tomorrow are worth that kind of attention? Such things sound impressive if said in a deep enough voice. They even give the illusion of being pious and humble and austere, but they're just another way of showing off, making yourselves look important. Paul's taking a serious whack at people who show off their religion all the time. You know, there's popular religious misconceptions that I was raised with, and perhaps many of you were raised with, that you have to follow certain rules to keep God from getting mad at you. That God is this tyrant in the sky who can't wait to get mad at you, and because he's somehow been offended, and so he had to send Jesus to take a beating on our behalf. Well, that's not it at all. Jesus came willingly to ransom us from sin and death. He came willingly to wipe that slate clean. But people will tell you have to follow certain rules to keep God from getting mad at you. That's hogwash. You have to do certain religious things to earn God's favor. More hogwash. Don't let yourself be bullied by this. Your slate is clean. Don't let anyone try to mess it up again. Forrest Gump had a very simple faith. Now, we know from the movie the character was cognitively impaired, but he trusted Jesus to save him. He prayed. He went to church. He even donated a lot of money to the church. But the most remarkable feature of his faith was his ability to forgive. He wiped slates clean like Jesus does. No matter what we've done, or what we're willing to do, or what we're doing, or what we will do. The point of this passage is that Jesus wipes your slate clean. Now, you all couldn't see this, but a woman just walked past me, and when I made that statement, she gave me a big smile. See, people need to know this message, that Jesus wipes the slate clean. Don't let anyone mess that up. You have no reason to feel guilty over your past, your present, or your future. Your slate is clean when you come to him and trust him to save you. Christianity has long been used to make people feel guilty. Jesus came to set us free from that. So let's not despise his freedom. Let's not belittle grace, but let's embrace it. And know that we have a clean slate because of what Jesus has done. I want all of you who are hearing my voice today to understand that Jesus came to clean your slate, to wipe out your past, to forgive you. And you stand forgiven in his presence just because you trust him to do that. And that's what I want everyone to see. I want everyone to know. I want everyone to experience this kind of grace. I want you to know that you can have it simply by turning to Him and asking Him to forgive you, and then trusting Him to do it. And it is just that simple. Well, now, folks, as a man much wiser than me said, that's all I have to say about that. Thanks for listening.